Hey guys, how's it going? Toofty here, and today we have 10 tips for the Demoknight. Look at me go, look at me trimping, look at me smashing these snipers in. It's beautiful, I know. Now then, I'm not so great at Demoknight because I don't have a lot of experience with him. So for this video, I actually consulted Solarlight, who's another YouTuber who's renowned more for his hybrid Demoknight, but he helped kind of feed into this. He's going to do a video of his own, focusing more on the hybrid knight, and I'm going to stick to the pure Demoknight, and together we've covered all bases. It's going to be beautiful. So obviously the Demoknight is kind of more situational than some classes. His viability in comp is questionable, and close your ears Demoknight mains, but he's almost borderline a bit of a gimmick. But in a pub, you can do work with him, and hopefully today I'm going to go through a bunch of tips that will help you do that. Now then, there are a surprising variety of playstyles within this subclass because there are so many different weapons, so many different shields, so many different combinations that you can use. It's a little bit mind-blowing and quite overwhelming to begin with. I like to categorise the weapons because I like to simplify things for my little brain, and we won't go too deep into this right now, but I like to think of the stock and the skull cutter as kind of the basic options, the Eyelander as the levelling up option. You slowly build to become this kind of god Demoknight. And then the third set are what I'm calling the reset melee weapons. As you charge onto the enemy, get a melee kill, they either reset your health or your charge meter. And my weapon of choice is the half Zatoichi. This weapon is a beauty, it is my bae. What are you going to do about it? So this guy on kill heals you 50%, and I find that very useful because as a Demoknight, you're deep in the action, you're going to get damaged a lot, and it really helps with that survivability. Now quickly going over to the shields, again, completely overly simplified, but I just want to whiz through these really quickly. You got the super tanky one, you got the chargy one, and you got the turny one, okay? Boom, done. What I don't like is that the chargy one looks a bit like it should be the tanky one. So yeah, in short, the one on the left, the charge and targe, this gives you lots of resistance to fire and explosive damage. The one in the middle, the splendid screen, a little bit less resistance, but more impact damage. So if you really want to go for that combo, finish them off with the melee, this might be the one for you. And finally, the tide turner, a little bit less resistance, but it gives you full turning control while charging. And when you get a melee kill, it refills your charge meter 75%. And this is actually my shield of choice, and this is the first thing that Solarlight taught me, and that is the fact that this is a very unusual and probably not wise option for the classic Demoknight. The way I play Demoknight is that I play the reset Demoknight, and I love the fact that using these two weapons I can reset both my health and my charge meter and very quickly either get out of there or replenish my health to carry on fighting. But of course it is all up to personal preference. Spend some time trying these out, explore different variations. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Tip number 1, don't be too ballsy. Not a very exciting tip, but one to get over and done with, and one that will vastly help you in terms of your survivability as a Demoknight. So what do I mean by this tip? Basically, don't do this. You see a bunch of the enemies grouped together, don't dive in, there's just no point. That's just not the way to play Demoknight. You really have to be patient, you have to have self-control. It's very tempting just to feel like it's a bit of a button mashy class, just jump in there, swords blazing, so to speak. But try and resist the urge to do that. Instead, be a bit more strategic with the way you engage the enemy. This is especially true for at the beginning of the map, so there's a couple of examples in the background here. When spawn opens and the enemies are flooding out, there's no point just charging in, you're just going to get demolished. Hold off a second and wait for the right time to take out your opponent. And we'll talk a bit more about when the right time to charge in is in just a sec. Please bear in mind though that I definitely don't necessarily follow all these tips throughout this footage. Sometimes I go mental and it's a bit of fun, you know, just to charge in there and have a laugh and see what happens. And sometimes it does pay off, but in the majority of times, you're going to get demolished. In this example here, I seem to be fighting bots, and that obviously does help a little bit in terms of being able to take out the entire enemy team. Number 2, flank and ambush. I found that Demoknight is almost very similar to spies and scouts in the way you move around the map. Moving around the outskirts, finding enemies to ambush or get behind. You tend to want to avoid engaging if the enemy can see you coming, and the reason being is that every other class has a ranged option, so they're going to be whittling you down before you actually get to the fight. So yeah, in a similar way to the spy, try and get to the back lines and work your way forward, picking off the meds at the very back first and the snipers, and then gradually working your way to the front lines and helping with the fight. A very simple example here, we're on Brazil, I come into the main area and I see a big old fight going on and I'm just like, nah, nope, no thank you, I'm going to just chill out, I'm going to head back round, try and relocate and come in from a more useful angle. I see the sniper, he's the only one who's seen me, so I'm going to go in for the kill, take him out, and be on my way again. Okay, number 3, don't waste your charge. Your charge is an awesome utility, and it's not just for attacking. I'd go as far as saying that you should be using your charge about 50% of the time for escaping, maybe 25% of the time for relocating, and then maybe 25% of the time for actually attacking. So these are of course just finger in the air figures, but I wanted to give you some idea of how often you're actually using the charge to attack the enemy. And obviously this again will depend on what shield you use and what have you. But yeah, most charges are for escaping, as we can see in these examples in the background now. And this is so ridiculously useful, so it allows you to get aggressive, take some risks, and know that you can get out safely. As a side note to this, bear in mind that as you're escaping, if you know there's a health pack nearby, try and take that route. Here's a little example on Enclosure. Fighting this engineer here, I'm getting pretty low actually, I'm in a bit of trouble, so I need to escape, but I know there's a health pack under here, so I'm going to charge, grab the health pack, I'm going to wrap back around and get back to my team. Other kind of utility options for the charge, obviously rolling out to mid, and also getting past like traps and choke points. If you find that you need to very quickly get past a small area of the map, it can be useful in this case too. The most important point I want to leave you with relating to this tip is that if you can get away with it, try and get up close to the enemy without charging. Get up close, then attack with your melee, knowing that you have the charge to escape if you need it. Here's a very quick example on Badlands, where I've managed to get kind of behind the enemy lines, and I see a couple of enemies that I can engage with. But note that, instead of charging in here, which you could easily do, I'm going to walk up to this pyro. And so while I was fighting that pyro, I felt safe knowing that if anything went pear, I had the option to escape if needed. So number 4 is about getting the reset. Again, this doesn't apply to every loadout, but it's definitely the way I really enjoy personally playing the Demoknight class. As we discussed before, try to sneak up on your first victim without using your charge, and then you can kind of, I like to call it kind of pinballing around. I guess it's like the equivalent of chain stabbing for the Demoknight. As we mentioned before, you can kind of start from the back lines and work your way forward. If you do find yourself confronted by several enemies, but you haven't got your charge yet for whatever reason, this is when you really have to focus in on one enemy, ideally the weakest, to try and finish them off so you can reset your charge. There's a really good example here on Sweden. I got a bit carried away, I saw this med and I went a little bit too deep. And now, all of a sudden, I'm confronted by 4 enemies. Because I know that I've hit that medic 2 or 3 times, I need to get into him and finish him off, and then I can charge out of there. Fortunately, I get the kill and I'm able to just about escape with my life. Number 5, pick on loners. We kind of touched upon this one already a little bit. Try to survey the battlefield and look out for those loners or players that are occupied. Engage with one of your teammates. In these 2 situations, you have a vastly bigger chance of being successful. And this kind of goes for any class, right? Outnumbering the enemy is always a good thing, but I think even more so with the Demoknight. So a lot of these tips link together, right? You're kind of flanking around the map, ambushing enemies, going for the loners, trying to get the reset and pinball around. And as you ambush, get up as close as you can without using your charge, so you can use that charge to escape or reset and get another kill. Another quick example here, we're on Kong King, lurking around the lower areas of the map, spot an individual enemy on the point. He's already distracted, so I'm going to finish him off very easily. Head back down the stairs. I see a lone pyro, a little bit iffy, but because he's alone, I'm going to go for it. Again, I spot this scout engaged with another enemy. This enemy is probably low, or at least distracted. I'm going to charge in, try and help him out. One swipe, he's taken out very easily, and so on and so forth. Number 6. Aim ahead. This will be quite a simple little tip really. If you're using the shield bash, bear in mind that you are basically a projectile, and as with any projectile, you'll need to aim ahead of the enemy. And this is especially the case if you're not using the tide turner, of course. Also bear in mind that if you catch a lonely enemy and there's one kind of escape route for them, aim in that direction to try and cut them off. Number 7. Know your limitations. This, alongside the first tip, is the first thing you need to learn as a Demoknight that will immediately make you live much longer and have much better survivability. It's quite simple, but you just need a very good understanding of who you're good against and who you're very weak against. So, the enemies that you shouldn't have any problems with and are really great targets are the sniper, medic and spy. And the reason I put the spy in that category is because you're really good at chasing them down. If you see them kind of cloak, your weapon has a larger hit radius, so you can swing around like crazy and finish them off. The classes that I think are more tricky are the Scout, Demoman and Soldier. I find with the loadout I use, Scouts are pretty easy picking because I use Tide Turner, I can chase them down, but a good Scout, to be honest, should be able to take you out. And Soldier, a little bit trickier, they're quite sturdy, and also they can juggle you away, which can make it very challenging to get up close and personal. And finally, you don't want to go near these guys. The Pyro, the Heavy, and I've put the Engineer, but what I mean by that is the big fat sentry gun. But it's very situational as always. If you've got the drop on a Pyro, if he's distracted, if you can get a free swing in, you should be able to finish him off quite nicely. I'd say the only two things really to completely avoid are a revved up Heavy, raring to go, and a sentry gun. And I'd even go as far as saying in some situations, if your team's trying to push and a sentry gun is just demolishing you over and over again, just switch off. There's no point just, waiting around and not being much use to your team. In this game on Thunder Mountain, I just got fed up. They had some ridiculous sentry guns, and I thought, I know I can take these out very easily, get to a nice position, throw down a few pills, and away you go. Here's finally another example on Suijin. Just taking out this spy here, and I see this Heavy, and I'm like, I'm close enough, I may as well engage and see what I can do. I've got my charge if I need it, but he starts revving up quite quickly, so it's not worth it at this point. I think there's a Pyro coming out of spawn as well. It's better off here just to escape to fight another day. Number 8, chase and finish. Despite what I've already said, the charge is a great way to finish off enemies. Enemies that are low, enemies that are on fire, spies who are trying to run away. And bear in mind that sometimes, if they're super weak, a shield bash will just be enough to finish them off. If you are playing a loadout that allows you to reset your health or your charge when you get a kill, remember that in this case, if that retreating player is going into a dangerous area, you may be able to still get in there, finish them off, and then get the reset to escape. This is especially the case I find with the half Zatoichi, where your health is replenished so you can finish off that player and then get out of there with your life. On a side note, if you find that you're the one being chased, a great tip that I've talked about before is the trusted bait. Run round a corner, feign the retreat, and then charge back into the enemy to surprise them and finish them off. Number 9, surf damage. Again, this is a very useful general tip, one that will apply to pretty much any class in the game, but it can be really useful for Demoknight when he's in a bit of a pickle, especially when you don't have your charge available. This technique tends to be most effective when facing a soldier. On this example on Harvest, I go deep onto the point and immediately I'm confronted by a soldier who smashes me in the face with a rocket. At this point, I just don't think it's worth me continuing this fight, but unfortunately I've already wasted my charge, so what I'm going to do is use his next rocket to help me jump out of there and get to safety. Another little side note here, if they are really low, you may be lucky enough to get them to finish themselves off, so to speak, with their own rocket. If you think they're close to death and you can take another rocket yourself, just get really close and personal, and if they haven't got a shotgun, this will force them to use that rocket and take splash damage themselves, and like in these examples here, they may just end up giving you a helping hand. Number 10, Trimp. All the tips I've gone through so far have been very general, but unfortunately this one I had to throw in there because it's just too awesome not to talk about. But yeah, just bear in mind that you have to use the Tide Turner to make this a thing. Trimping is so much fun and it's dead simple when you get the hang of it. This is of course another area I got Solarlight's input on because he is of course the trimping god. So first of all, how do you trimp? Well, it's dead simple, right? You need to charge into a slope and get approximately 90 degrees to it, so you slide up that slope and your momentum carries you forward. Here's a quick quote from Solarlight who goes into a bit more depth. While in a charging state, movement keys do nothing and you're propelled forward, which means you're forced to do a W strafe movement. If you want to air strafe to the left, looking about 90 degrees to the left and holding W is the same thing as looking directly forward and holding A. But when charging, your only option is the first method. Now I think there are some awesome tutorials out there, so I won't go to too much depth here. Explore the options out there, it's so much fun to do and it can be actually really useful in certain situations. It's really good for getting behind the enemy very quickly, ambushing the enemy, all these things that we've talked about before. Here's another good example on Enclosure where as a Demoknight pushing through this choke is really difficult. Well, in this case there was a very convenient slope there. Bit lucky there with the pyro, but yeah, now I'm behind the enemy and I can do a lot more work and contribute to this push. Even if you're not super confident, you're not sure exactly where you're going to land, just go out there, explore, have some fun with it and see what you can find. Well, there we have it, guys. That was 10 tips for Demoknight. I'm not massively great at this class, so I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If I've missed any tips, if you disagree with anything I've said, always love to hear from you guys. Thanks again to Solarlight for his tips, advice and input whilst making this video. I've already done quite a few 10 tip videos, so go back and check those out if you've not already. Anyway guys, I hope you like this video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Right here. Now that's a headbutt.